Now, when I was a kid, museums were places where you could walk through a big Victorian hall filled with drawers of dead animals, weird rocks and a stuffed zebra in front of a cardboard diorama of the Serengeti. Although many of our museums today focus more on the super-modern digital displays, the old-school aesthetic, although under threat, is not a thing of the past just yet. And as Fenella Kernebone discovered, some artists share my nostalgia and pay homage to the methodology of the museum.
There's a wealth of ideas and inspiration there in the museum.
They take you somewhere else, a different time, a different place.
When would you get to see animals like that up close without actually being in a natural habitat?
On many levels, museums offer a real meeting point between art and science. Now, not only do they provide a rich source of inspiration for a whole range of artists, but the craft that actually goes into making a lot of these exhibits, well, that's the stuff of art as well.
John Keane is the producer of exhibitions at Melbourne Museum, and this is where the museum preparators create the displays.
Well, it's a sort of artist studio at one level and it's a butcher shop at another. There's various parts to what preparators do. They bring in dead specimens and they're reduced down to skeletons, the skin's taken off for later taxidermy.
A museum preparator is involved in scientific research and conservation, as well as maintaining and creating displays. But in earlier times, their job was mainly the art of the diorama.
Well, dioramas are artefacts of the late 19th century and the 20th century. They seek to recreate nature as exactly as possible in an architectural setting. And they bring together three-dimensional elements like mounted specimens, taxidermy, with scenic art.
Over the years, the diorama has fallen in and out of favour.
A lot of museums tend towards a more sort of modern reinterpretation of presenting specimens and objects, and I mean, I feel quite sad about it.
Which is exactly what happened when Melbourne Museum reopened in Carlton Gardens in 2000.
The diorama had been replaced in lots of ways by electronic devices, and a lot of what we're doing now is bringing back elements of that old museum and building them into the new exhibits here, so that there's a sense of continuity.
Melbourne artist Kate Rohde makes elaborate displays featuring faux taxidermy animals.
I like to twist the diorama to present a sort of unreal reality when it's meant to be presenting truth, basically. This creature is actually based on a more common variety of pheasant, but because I can't just sort of leave anything as it is, I've made it a bit more spectacularly patterned. At Tarawara, I've essentially combined a natural history museum with a European-style garden. And it's a bit like the diorama inside is kind of starting to infect the garden, and it's sort of spilling out and growing out. So the little flowers inside the diorama are then kind of growing rampantly in a bit weed-like in the garden.
Jeweller and artist Karen Findice was fascinated by the collections at the Macleay Museum at Sydney University.
The collection of insects in the museum, which Macleay himself, Alexander Macleay, collected. They're a really beautiful presentation of insects and beetles.
Her most recent exhibition, Samples, a Taxonomy of Objects, took its cue from the traditional museum practices of ordering and classifying specimens and artefacts.
I've used the original specimen jars from the Macleay Museum, and for me that was a way of bringing in something else from the museum, but also something from the past, something genuine. And within those jars I've incorporated images of objects that I've collected in a contemporary time frame.
Julia DeVille, also a jeweller, takes it to a new level, the art of taxidermy.
Well, in the freezer of the fridge I've got probably a few foxes, about 10 birds, some bunnies, a puppy, a cat.
The whole menagerie?
Yeah, pretty much.
Where do you get them from?
Mainly donated. This piece is called Gun Club. It's making fun of the hunting for sport industry. just saying how ridiculous it is to kill an animal just to stick its head on a plaque and put it on your wall. And so he's got little diamond eyes, and it's a jet shield which has a gold brooch back on the back with an old French inscription which means "pray for me always." I really strive for my work to be delicate and beautiful, and I want them to look peaceful and sound. I don't want to shock people or frighten people.
Lots of artists try to get close to museum skills, but what the preparators bring to their art is an incredible scientific rigour. We've got the scientists over our shoulders making sure that our work is as accurate as their work.
I think the difference is that I can have a lot more fun and be a lot more wild, and I'm not bound by, you know, the truth of what the object is.
Yes, good on you, Kate Rose, and good on you, Fenella Kernebone. Lovely stories.
Do you like taxidermy?
Well, I do like that old-fashioned museum aesthetic of just having things presented to you and, like, the wonderment of the world kind of, like, up there.
I know, and there's this kind of concept that you're in this one position, and if you sort of look out that way, it's this perfect image or diorama.
Yes.
It's that one moment in time that's just been stopped forever. It's quite remarkable.
And it's a kind of a fantasy, is it? Because the world's not really like that. But it's like these artists are plugging into just that ideal.
Well, it's about nostalgia, I think, definitely. Although I've got to say, John Keane in the story was saying that the artists sometimes get it wrong, because it's not just about nostalgia. For them, it's about science.
And speaking of taxidermy animals, one features prominently in this year's Sydney Biennale, I believe. An inverted horse, is that correct?
Well, sort of. A stuffed horse by Maurizio Catalan, and it's in the Biennale. It's a suspended horse from the ceiling, and of course it's one of the features of, I think there's 180 artists or more who are featured in this year's Sydney Biennale. It's the 16th, and I think it's very exciting. And, you know, that's a very funny work. It's like a dark sense of humour, asking us to look at something and go, we sort of look at it with doubt, I suppose.
Isn't it revolutions, forms that turn? Is that the theme of it?
That's the curatorial theme that the curator Carolyn Christov Bakarjev has put together. And the idea is that she's asking us as viewers and also artists to question our world, to respond to what's happening socially and politically and culturally in our world. So not just art as decoration.
Wonderful. It's a real case of art responding to the times as well.
Actually, I'll tell you what, the one thing I haven't seen yet, which I can't wait to see, is one artist, and his name is Christophe Bouquel, and he's got a bunch of octogenarians, so 80-plus, senior citizens, to get together and perform live for 3 months throughout the festival the very punk, revolutionary song God Save the Queen from the Sex Pistols. Bring it on.
Oh, truly inspiring. Now, what's inspiring us next week, Fenella?
Oh, well, totally different, a different type of musical performance, but it's Emmanuel Axe, and I have a chat to this very famous American pianist.
Wonderful. Can't wait for it. Thanks very much.
Thank you.